Howdly doodly there, neighborinos. Hope you're having a flanderific day. I just want to let you know I had to fight to get this stream going. I had to fight because Twitch didn't want to work, Minecraft didn't want to work, which, I mean, I guess Minecraft working wasn't the end of the world, but, you know, really annoying. I mean, honestly, feels just kind of appropriate given this week, but, you know, it's over with. I got through it. So I'm really not too sure what I want to do for this episode. I spent more time trying to, like, you know, get the stream going that I really didn't have anything great to present. So I guess we're gonna do this we're gonna, like, I guess we're not gonna do this, but, like, we're gonna read the Book of Enoch at some point. We're going to read it at some point. But today is not that day because I want to read it with G. If I'm being honest, I want to read it with G because I want to get his reactions to this stuff. I'm reading it myself on the side, you know. But I want to see G's reactions when he listens to some of this stuff. So what I'm going to do is just go through a couple of verses, right? And, like, a couple of things, like cherry-picked things. And like I said, we're going to read the entire thing one day. But today is not that day. So I feel like I should give a little bit of background to the Book of Enoch real quick before we kick this off, because the background, the context of the book is very, 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 very important. Because if the context of it was different, it wouldn't be special. So anyway, it's an apocryphal book, which means it's not considered part of the canon of the Bible. I think that's bullshit. And I hope I'll convince you that that is bullshit too. Then again, I talk very confidently about this book, and I'm only like halfway through it. But I mean, what I've heard so far, and again, given the context and everything, is a little redonkulous, as the kids might say. So anyway, the Book of Enoch is one of the first Jewish religious texts. I have to word it like that because it's not a book of the Bible. Is one of, or it's not even a book in the Tanakh. The Tanakh? Tanakh? What is, how do you say that again? I think it's the Tanakh. Yes, the Tanakh. Okay. So it's not a part of the Tanakh, and we're going to explain why it's not a part of that either. So it's one of the first Jewish religious texts that was ever, like, written down. So technically Genesis and, like, no, it would have been Genesis. So technically Genesis was, like, passed down in oral tradition, like, before Enoch, but Enoch was written down before Genesis, if that makes sense. So very early, right? And this is going to be very, very important later on, like with all the things I'm going to talk about. So beyond that, I guess I should kind of explain what an apocryphal book is. An apocryphal book of the Bible means it didn't make it into the canon, but it's not like heretical. Um, yeah, there can be, you can basically, you can read it and you can pull out like nuggets of truth, I suppose. So like an example of some apocryphal books, would be like Maccabees, um, Judith, or Jude and Tobith, shit like that. Which, I mean, I think are technically in Catholic Bibles. And this is the thing: the Book of Enoch technically is in a Bible, a Bible. It's the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. They're the ones that have the Book of Enoch. It's got like 100 chapters or something like that. It's a lot. So let's see. What other context do I need to give to this book? Okay. I guess setting would be nice. So, and like all that kind of info. So, written down by Enoch, or someone who knew Enoch. And it takes place, it would have been after Cain and Abel, but before, like, Noah, obviously. Because Noah's dad, or no, I want to say Enoch was maybe Noah's grandpa, or like great grandpa, somewhere around in there, like a couple generations removed, not like father son, you know. And Enoch in the Bible is really only given one verse, and it basically says, and I'm gonna I explained it to my brother this way, and he said that it's very South Park, so I'm gonna give my very South Park answer to like the story of Enoch biblically. And God liked Enoch. He was very cute. So God took Enoch into heaven. and that's it. That's the end of the story. He thought he was pretty cute and took him into heaven. Yeah. So to me, it's very strange, because Enoch is one of those characters in the Bible, like Elijah, that are just like, they get the Disney fast pass into heaven, right? The express ticket, you know, the all expense paid trip to heaven, you know. So it's very odd that the Bible would like mention that, be like, yeah, no, he was pretty cute, you know, so cool that like he got the Disney fast pass to heaven, but then not tell you anything about him, or like why he was cool, or what he did, or anything like that. But if the book of or if Moses, because we're assuming Moses wrote down Genesis, but you know what, just for shits and gigs, we'll say the author of Genesis. The author of Genesis seems like he expects you to know who the fuck Enoch is and what he did. Because again, that's just such a random throwaway line. Like, why would you add that? Like, I mean, I don't know. I guess there are some kind of weird throwaway lines in Genesis, but they're typically not this big of a throwaway line. Man, I really wish I had a good example of a throwaway line from Genesis that I could give you and be like, see, this is something, you know? Like, I want to say they talked about, like, some great fight or something that happened, and it's like, okay, all right. Hey there, Yellow, how's it going? But, yeah, I can't remember that specific, whatever, it doesn't matter. So anyway, the Book of Enoch basically just goes over these visions that Enoch is given of heaven. Now, when he's in heaven, he sees some pretty interesting things and gets some pretty interesting revelations. Now, it doesn't seem Gnostic. Well, it physically couldn't have been Gnostic because Gnosticism came around after the New Testament was written and was circulating. So, again, that's kind of far off for something that was written before Genesis was written. So, yeah, it doesn't really have that whole, like, hidden knowledge thing, but it kind like it I wouldn't even say it straddles the line, but like it's a weird book. It's a weird book, okay? Anyway, one of the major things that Enoch sees in his vision that made the Jews go, man, we can't like add this to the Tanakh. You're a weird book. No, you're a weird book, Yellow. Oh, actually, you are a weird book. The King in Yellow? You are a weird book. Look that up, The King in Yellow. If you've never heard of that, that's a weird book. You've totally threw me off my train of thought. With the whole King in Yellow thing. Oh man, I was on a roll too. Oh yeah. So the thing Enoch sees, well, one of the things Enoch sees in heaven that makes the Jews go, ah, shit, we can't throw this in our canon, is because Enoch mentions that he sees this character called the Son of Man in heaven who intercedes on behalf of humanity. And then later he super fried chicken, Southern Fried Conviction. That's the name of the series. Yeah, and then later it talks about, you totally threw off my train of thought. Winky face, blowing me a kiss. Tang, stop it. Now I'm blushing. Whoa, I get Twitch drops watching this? Yes, you do. Yes, you do, Slicks. That's actually where I got... Here, let me go ahead and show you guys. That's where I got this cape. Look at this cape. I think it's supposed to be Jack Black. So I'll probably end up taking this cape off. But, I mean... I guess it's kind of cool. I got a free cape for watching my own stream. Isn't that nice? You're probably right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's got to be Jack Black, because like, who else could that be? But he's Tenacious D. Well, he can suck on Tenacious D's nuts. Got him. I'm going to Jack Black all over you. Oh, no. No, you've got the Jack, Yellow. You've got the Jack. Just side tangent. That's a... You're gonna Tenacious D all over him. Wow. But I feel like I gotta go ahead and clarify this old slang, because this is like 60s Australian slang that I've just thrown around in the chat. Like, everyone's gonna, like, know. So apparently, the Jack refers to STDs. And the reason that Yellow would know, he's old, but he's not Australian. So AC/DC wrote the song The Jack so that whenever some, like, groupie would come over and would say that one of the members of the band gave them STDs, they can break into the song The Jack, and it's like, like, she's the one that's got the Jack. Okay, cool. I'm glad that we cleared that up. Let's talk about the Bible again and Enoch, which I mean, I guess technically is the Bible if we're talking about the Ethiopian Bible, which is kind of the canon that I tend to go for now, that I've actually like read half of the Book of Enoch and I'm continuing to read the Book of Enoch. Anyway, another character, well, it's the same character that we meet, is the elect one. And okay, well, you know what? We're just gonna like go into okay, here we go. Enoch chapter 14 describes heaven and like what it looks like. And it perfectly lines up with descriptions of heaven from books that are written like in some cases, in the case of Revelation, we're talking about like from BC to AD, right? Like crazy, crazy amounts of time in between these two books. And yet, the Book of Enoch perfectly lines up with descriptions of Revelation, which again was written in AD. I want to say maybe like around 100 AD or something like that. Heavy breathing. Am I breathing heavy right now? Is it me? Do I have my mic too close to my face? I can back it up. Or are you just really into what I'm saying? Because like you can tell me if I'm breathing into the mic and it's gross. Oh, okay, okay. You got me really worried there. Because I don't want to sound like I'm eating my mic. Unless, like, I'm literally trying to eat the mic. You know? Oh, look, all the bees are out. Anyway, like I was saying earlier, he's getting... nice. Oh, I'm glad to hear it. Glad to hear it there, big boy. Just the worst episode of Southern Fried Conviction ever. I am so sorry, Jesus. I am so sorry, Jesus. Anyway, so speaking about Jesus, actually, like I was saying before, there is this part in Enoch 14 where it talks about the Son of Man who intercedes for humanity. And is described as having like power and authority. And this to me just perfectly says like, oh yeah, that's Jesus 100%. Let's see here. Enoch 25, 3 through 7 describes the Lord of glory that will come down to earth and will visit it with goodness. Then it goes on to talk about a tree that oh, actually, I'm sorry. A tree that. Oh no, that was a later one. Sorry, no, I'm right here. It goes to talk on about a tree that sounds a lot like the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And then when the Lord of glory comes down, this tree will be given to the righteous after the day of judgment. And then there will be no torment or sorrows for the believers. Now, if that doesn't match up with Revelation perfectly, then, like, I don't... You like big trees? I used to like big trees, but then I stopped smoking. Anyway. Where am I at here? Yeah. So on Enoch 25, it is. Smoking is bad, Slicks. That's why we don't do it here on this channel. Yeah. But also, I mean, if you want to, you can go over and get it at my store so I can have a job. But also, I don't know, I might want to leave that job here soon. So, maybe I don't care. Smoking is bad, okay? Okay, it's bad. It's bad for you. Okay. It's big bad. Mm-hmm. But yeah, anyway, Enoch 25, 3 through 7, like, for something that was written, again, literally written down before Genesis was written down. Like, that's just wild that something that was written around 100 AD would perfectly match up with it. And it's like, I mean, I guess you could say, if you wanted to try, like, arguing against it, you could say that Revelation was copying Enoch, but yet it's not like a copy and paste thing. It's like you can tell that it's different but the same. You know what I mean? Like how someone might describe a cow, right? They may say that it's got like, oh, I don't know, it's got horns and like a big nose, right? And it goes moo. But then someone else might be like, oh, but it's fat and it's got udders, you know, and you can squeeze the udders and milk comes out. And it's like, these are two different descriptions, but they match up on the same thing, you know? And I guess you could say that they're both similar because it's like, though, they're both big and maybe they describe it to be the same, like, color. Anyway, I'm utterly confused. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't, like, the greatest of analogies, but again, like I said, it's the same thing, but, like, slightly different, you know? Like a perspective change. Because, again, two different people. Like, what do you expect? Also, this book catches some flack from Christians because they say, oh, well, also Ultra's face. No, your face, Slicks. But this book catches some flack from Christians because they say, oh, Enoch gets this huge vision of heaven and we never see that, like in the Bible. So it can't be real. But I'm going to argue that that's dumb. And here's why I'm going to argue that. Because if we're going to go ahead and say that anytime something is like different and weird in the Bible, well then you might as well get rid of Revelation. That's a weird book. There's not anything like Revelation in the Bible. You might as well get rid of Songs of Solomon. That's a weird book. There's not anything that's quite like it. Slicks on planning a trip to America. Nice. Yes, again, you'd have to take out Songs of Solomon. There's nothing like it, and it's a weird book. You could say the same for Psalms. That's a weird book. There's not another, like, there's not another book of songs. You're going to marry his couch. Oh no. Just don't consummate the marriage, Yellow. I'm pretty sure that would be Slicks's main request. Don't consummate the marriage between you and his couch. I've totally lost my train of thought again. Y'all are wilding out here. Guess we're just gonna move on because I can't remember what I was saying. Enoch 28 makes specific mention of rain, and it talks about, like, I'll consummate your brain. No, don't consummate my brain. No, I don't give you permission. No, that would be non-consensual. Enoch 28 makes specific mention of, like, storehouses of rain in heaven, which is an interesting detail I wanted to point out because in, I think it's Isaiah, it talks about, or I think God specifically says, have you seen the storehouses of rain in heaven, and it's like, wait a minute, I've seen this one before. It's just, again, a really fascinating point that Enoch would mention this like years before God would say it to Isaiah. Just, it's a very, very bizarre coincidence if you don't believe it. Personally, I believe it, and it's like, oh yeah, they're talking. Enoch is talking about the same thing that God is talking about. Oh, I remember what I was saying earlier. With you'd have to throw out books of the Bible if we're gonna go by Enoch is weird. Therefore, um, come basically customs and immigrations. Yes, in the words of the one of the worst presidential candidates in all of history and the worst vice president in all of history, don't come. Don't come. And then to quote one of the greatest presidents of all time, I'm gonna come. No, like I'm planning to. Oh no. I'm not even gonna say that out loud. If you all have not seen that meme where it's Kamala saying, like, don't come, and then it's Trump saying, I'm gonna come, you have to watch it. It will change your life. It is the fucking funniest shit ever. And whoever made it needs, like, a memer of the century award. You saw that? Yeah, top tier meme. Top tier. Oh, I don't know if you all have heard, but we need to put Trump on Mount Rushmore. He's getting Courtney Love to self-deport to the UK. Like, as a Nirvana fan, I tip my hat to you, sir. Like, thank you. If only you had done that back in, like, the early 90s, we might still have Nirvana, because she wouldn't have got the chance to... But that's a conversation for another time. Back to the Bible, as I was saying, if we're going to throw out Enoch because it's a weird book where it's got some things that don't happen in other books, again, you'd have to throw out Revelation, you'd have to throw out Esther, you'd have to throw out Songs of Solomon, you'd have to throw out Psalms, you'd have to throw out Job. I'm sure you could go down the list, but those are just 5 off the top of my head that you'd have to throw out because there's nothing like them in the Bible. But they made it to the cut. And also, I'm sorry, but if anyone is going to get like an enormous vision of heaven, I think it would probably be the guy that the Bible says was so cool that God took him into heaven. One of like 2 people that happened to. Like, yeah, no, that makes sense. That if anyone would be getting this huge vision of heaven, it would probably be one of those 2 people. Like, this tracks. This makes sense to me, at least. So anyway, continuing on. Enoch 32, 3 through 5 describes a heavenly realm that parallels Eden perfectly. And it actually has the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And I think that this is a really interesting point to bring up, because if Eden is now like a heavenly realm, oh, well, I'm flattered. Well, actually, no, I'm not flattered. I'm the backup? Wow. Excuse me. I am fabulous enough to be, like, a first, please. Clip that and put it on a t-shirt. Oh, man. But anyway, I think that's just really... Okay, enough with that. Oh, man. Yeah, I just think it's, like, pretty interesting, though, because if Eden is, like, a heavenly realm now, that might explain why we've never found the Garden of Eden, and, like, why there's no, like, angel with a flame sword that's, like, patrolling around somewhere. Because maybe God was just like, alright, I'm yoinking this shit, boop, and, like, made it a heavenly realm. It would track. Like, that makes a lot of sense. Enoch 34:2 describes various weather coming from portals from heaven, which matches up from earlier chapters of Enoch, and the Bible itself. Like I said earlier, when it's mentioning like the storerooms of rain and windows of heaven opening for the flood. In Enoch 39:12 through 13, it describes like angels giving praise to heaven. And it's like very, 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 very similar to the exact same praises that God is given in heaven in, I think it's Isaiah or Revelation. One of the two. In Enoch 40 verse 1, it gives the same number, the same number amount in the same fashion as Revelation when it's describing like the number of angels. I want to say it's like 10,000 times 10,000. And again, it's just, that's a very, very, very fucking bizarre detail. You know, for Enoch to have written, again, before Noah. Well, I mean, I guess I don't know exactly when the book of Enoch was written, but it was written down before Genesis, right? And then Revelation, the last book of the Bible to be written, they both describe. And again, Revelation is the one that like everyone agrees is like, yep, this belongs in the Bible. And Revelation says the number of angels in heaven is 10,000 times 10,000. And Enoch gives the exact same number, the exact same way. It's just, again, in Enoch 45, 2 through 5, it literally talks about, okay, I'm just going to say, it talks about how Jesus comes down and how, like, the end of days happens and judgment, and then everyone gets to, like, inherit, like, all the righteous get to inherit the earth. And that, like, Jesus is going to knock, well, they call him the elect one, but you read between the lines and it's Jesus, and he's going to, like, throw the strong off of their thrones and, like, take his seat. And then in Enoch 46, 3 through 6, it basically says that this elect one, which again is Jesus, has always been around since the beginning of time. And he will go on to humble the strong and punish the sinners. It's crazy. Like I said, the book constantly references the elect one, who's like, before Jesus was on the scene, this was interpreted as like the chosen one, the Messiah. But after Jesus came around, it's like it's clear that he's talking about Jesus here. In the first parable in Enoch 38:2, it talks about how the righteous will inherit the earth. This is found throughout the Bible. Again, in books that were written way after it. Enoch refers to angels as stars, which Revelation does. It talks about how the dragon will sweep like a third of the stars from heaven, and that's supposed to be angels. And again, it constantly refers to angels as stars in this book. So I guess I should talk about the plot of this book since I just kind of went through. Like I said, one day we're going to read it on stream, but it basically starts out with Enoch meeting the angels, like the archangels, basically, who are who are Gabriel, Michael, Uriel, and I forget the name of the fourth one. But anyway, these four angels are looking down on the earth, and they see like all of the fucked up shit that's happening, because there's like chimera and giants, because watchers, which are like angels, came down and like banged human women, and they made all of these terrible creatures. So the angels are like, oh God, what are we gonna do about this? So then God goes and like gives them the plan, and they go and they fulfill the plan, right? And then basically Enoch goes on like this super trippy heavenly journey where he journeys through like the earth, and he sees where the Watchers have been bound, and where it has Space Jesus talking down Cain because he was tempted by the dark side and underestimated the high ground. You know, honestly, I feel like we need to talk about Cain at some point, because that's a very interesting man. Yeah, there's a lot of weird shit about Cain that you don't really consider when you're a kid. There's actually a lot of really gross shit that happens in the Bible that you don't consider as a kid. Like when you're first told these stories, but I mean, it's gross, but it makes sense. But it's like the kind of like incest that happens like a lot throughout the book. Like you always hear the story about how Sarah and Abraham were like go to Egypt, and he's like, oh, you gotta say that you're my sister so that like I don't get killed. But then what the part they don't tell you as a kid is in the later part. Abraham is like, well, after like the Egyptians find out that like she's his wife, he goes like, what the fuck, bro? Like, she's your wife, not your sister. And Abraham is just like, well, technically she is like a half sister of mine, because like we have the same father, but we don't have the same mother. And it's like, oh yeah, I guess things kind of had to work like that back then. Like, you. But I mean, it makes sense because, like, I guess physically there's not that many people on the earth. Anyway, moving on swiftly from that. But yeah, no, it just talks about how Enoch sees all of like the Watchers bound, and like he goes to all these like different heavenly realms basically, and like he sees heaven and like the throne of God, and it perfectly matches up with every description of heaven and God's throne that we are ever given in the Bible. Ever. Okay, my internet crapped out and I didn't hear your answer. Oh, I was saying that that actually we should talk about Cain sometime, because there's a lot of very interesting things when it comes to Cain, a lot of weird things that you don't consider as a kid. And then I went off onto this side tangent about how there's a lot of really weird things in the Old Testament that you don't consider, like, when you're a kid. And basically just referencing, like, how there had to be, like, some incest just for, like, physical, like, numbers reasons, you know? I'd also like to clarify, I don't think, like, everyone was committing incest. I think that, like, there were, like, some other people, because I don't think Adam and Eve were the exclusive only two people. I think, like, yeah, like, at first they were, but then, you know, God created some other people. We'll talk about that later. That's another topic for another day. We'll talk about that when we talk about Cain. But yeah, he's going on this big heavenly psychedelic trip, I guess you could say. And yeah, he, like I said, meets Jesus and sees Eden, and yeah. And that's basically where I've gotten, and then it goes into, like, parables, and these parables aren't really parables because there's not really a story being told. I mean, it's more like prophecies, really, because it talks about, like, end times and how, like I said before, one of them was like how the righteous will inherit the earth, and another one was like how the elect one, Jesus, is going to come down and, like, destroy the wicked and like give the earth to the righteous, and his throne will be on the earth. And it's like, oh yeah, so the thing that Revelation is going to tell me in, like, 100 AD. Cool. Anything that you want to add to this, Slicks? Anything that you thought was cool or interesting? Because I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that you haven't heard of the Book of Enoch before outside of an Ultra Mega OK stream. I'm gonna assume that you're not too familiar with this before. That didn't make sense. You can tell I'm tired. Nope, Slicks has got nothing to say. So thank you so much for watching, Yellow. Thank you, Slicks. Thank you to anyone else who may have tuned in and didn't chat with me. I really appreciate it. Thank you to the YouTube crowd who's going to like and subscribe. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.